about to get lined up here, so we'll give Gromit a name check in just a moment's time as we watch these crews come on to the start.
Oh, I reckon Christian Reese could have held down the 7th seat and they could have shoved Tass into the bow seat. What do you reckon?
What do you think, Angus?
Pretty controversial, that.
I know, yeah. Well, you did say something controversial, so I thought I'd round that. Both coxes with their hands up, indicating to the umpire, Sarah Winkless, they are not yet ready.
It's a good shot of the stream, actually. You can see they've stopped, or they're going now, but you can see how fast the stream's going.
Well, I thought Wallace was a little bit down off the start there, and again, our camera's not exactly on the line, but they've got a little bit of making up to do here as we move into the first few strokes of this race. Gromit not only with the advantage there off the start, but also with the advantage of this first bend.
Yeah, it looks a pretty close start. We'll see them as they come past London Rowing Club. I just had a look at the crew on the far side, Gromit. I thought I liked the way that stern 3 combination was working. If anything, I think it's Wallace, stroked by Nick Cole, who might be slightly up. They have half a deck, or almost a deck, coming past us in London Rowing Club, and Nicholas Cole has really taken them off with a sense of purpose.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that is a huge punchy rhythm being set by Nick Cole in the stroke seat. You can just see the differences in liveliness between that and what Nick Rush's doing for Gromit, that are just that little bit lower. Yeah, 35 strokes a minute for Wallace on the right-hand side of your picture, going off long and strong, which I think, you know, maybe they know their capacity. They just want to get into a strong rhythm, but very punchy up at 38 strokes a minute there for Wallace.
Yeah, definitely very aggressive. I think the lower stroke rate for Gromit could work in their favour later on, because they're really not losing that much at this time, and they're going to have somewhere to go later on.
Yeah, exactly. And again, with every stroke that these guys take, it is more experience in this crew combination than they've ever had before. They're not training all the time out here in these combinations. So they will just be finding their feet here in this opening few hundred metres, unlike what you see usually on race day, which is this is the point that you really set your marker down. Now, interesting steering here, different to what we saw in the women's race, Angus. They're starting to shuffle over towards the Surrey Bend.
Yeah, it could just be that's where the faster water is. We've got a bit more water in the river now as the tide's coming in, so that could be the deeper part of the channel.
Nick Cole, the stroke man of the crew on the left of Wallace, is really going for it. It looks to me like Nick Rusher is very controlled, smooth around the back turn. I love the way Saxon Stacey's a fantastic rower from Eton, coached by Mark Fangenhall, the Oxford coach when he was there. And you know, to my money, that's the rhythm that's going to win this race, the crew on the right. I don't know what you guys think, but they are moving back on Nicholas Cole's crew and Cox by Rail Marchand. I know that's an early call.
Well, I just heard Sarah Winkless say both crews, which is both crews move apart, so I think she believes that they're not on station, but no one crew is in the wrong here. But look at this, cutting up the inside, using their Middlesex bend beautifully here. Tara Slade, she knows this course, having coxed the OUBC women in 2023, and look at that slip up the inside. They have, I think, now taken the lead, Angus.
Yeah, I think so, and they've just it's just past the apex of that first bend, but it's still quite close. That the Wallace crew is really hanging on at the moment, but the river's going to come round to their advantage in the next probably 12 minutes.
Yeah, the only thing you would say is that the crew on the right, Gromit, stroked by the American, coxed by Tara Slade, probably should have had a bit more advantage on that Middlesex bend, and the bend is going to unwind. So, you know, the guys on the left are going to be thinking, we've got the bend, but that rhythm, I think, yeah, probably, if it goes like this, Nick Rusher is going to be stroke of the boat race. I would probably shove Saxon Stacey in the 7th seat behind him. You've got Felix Rawlinson in that boat, and Stacey and Rawlinson won the 5k GB trials, the under-23 trials. They are a super fast pair. They're great boat movers, and the boat moving quality to me is really working in that Gromit boat on the right of your screen at the moment.
I think the difference for me between the two crews is that Gromit look a lot more relaxed. Wallace just looked that little bit more tense, which is just impairing the flow of their boat, whereas Gromit looked really confident, sitting up nice and tall. You can see Nick Rusher chest up nice and tall, just pushing the boat along, really not using too much energy at all.
And that was from stroke one, right? We said that, them going off the start, keeping it cool, calm, knowing agreeing, what they were going to go off the start at, even if it was going to put them down, has really paid off at this point in the race. But, well, look, you can see looking out the boat there, Nick Cole on your left in the stroke seat. That's the third, fourth time he's looked over his shoulder at the opposing grommet crew, which must be,
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure whether that's something you should be doing.
His crewmate from the 4, Lotto, I mean, he is the boat looker out par excellence, particularly as you're coming out to the finish. So he's in good company there. This is a cracking race, I must say. If you're the coach of this squad, Mark Fangenhall and Harry Brightmore, Bodo Schulenberg are going to be absolutely delighted with the quality on view so far.
The other thing about looking at the boat is really important. Is seeing we might have a clash here. You want to be looking at your blade in the clash, so you don't mess up and you don't make a mistake. Which
is a really good point, actually. For these guys that are on that side, where they're looking out at their blade, making sure that those bow side blades aren't going to clash. Yeah, they'll all have been sort of prepped for that.
And particularly for Nick Cole in the stroke seat, the stroke is really key for setting the rhythm. So if he makes a mistake and he catches the crab, that's going to completely destroy the rhythm. So it's really important he keeps hold of his blade.
Oh, this is wonderful. They're starting to push back now, Wallace, aren't they, Crossy?
Yeah, I tell you what, I think the lads in the middle of that, the 24-year-old James Doran, the grand winner from this year, and William O'Connell, I haven't seen him row, but he's a bit of a tall, monster kind of guy, really powerful. He did compete for Canada, I think it was back in the Under-23 World Championships back in 2013. He does look so powerful. He learnt to row in Sydney Rowing Club, and he rowed with Drew Ginn, the Australian legend, who Mark Fangenhall has employed as a consultant with Oxford this year. If there's one person in the world that knows how to move a boat, it's Drew Ginn. And that power from the middle of the boat is seriously impressive on the Surrey Bend. What a punch.
It looks like the Wallace crew on the Surrey side has just made quite a big move. And so throughout the race, you've only got probably 2, maybe 3 big moves max. So they're burning some of their matches now, but it's really paid off for them, making the most at the inside of that bend.
Yeah, Christian Rees in the bow of that Wallace crew, the 18-year-old schoolboy, or probably 17 at the moment. He is coming past his home boat club at St Paul's. So his crew will be out on St Paul's, I think, the slipway, cheering for him as he comes down. It's not all over yet for Grommet. They have got that really good rhythm. If they can stay in contact, round to their bend, the Middlesex bend, as we come up to Barnes Bridge. We're not past halfway yet, but you can see the course on the right where that bend comes round. There's the St Paul's lads giving Christian a shout. And they haven't let Wallace go, and there's still contact.
This is the first Trial 8s race that we've had between Monday and today where we've still had overlap and contact at this point in the race, and the advantage will dwindle for Wallace as we get further round this bend. And I think if Middlesex, if the Grommet crew can keep this overlap, it's going to be Tara Slade in the Cox's seat telling them to keep hope, keep belief, because they will gain that advantage back, Angus.
Who's going to win now?
I think ask me again in like a minute or two.
I'll go Grommet.
That's a really key point that you made, Camilla. It's really important for Grommet to keep in contact, and it's really important for Tara Slade then just to keep her crew on message and say, like, look, their advantage is running out. We're keeping in contact, and as you can see, they're moving back. They're moving back.
And they're coming closer towards one another as well. The coxing definitely not courteous here in this OUBC men's Trial 8s race.
I tell you what, we are seeing a squad that could win the boat race. I mean, this is such a quality race all the way down the course. The coaches are going to be smiling and laughing all over their face. What a job they have done to put these two 8s together.
Now, Angus, I think there's just been a clash there. I saw a huge bunch of water just fly up. Oh, actually, no, it's the water that's starting to push up here. This is that choppy condition as the tide's risen. We're at the fullest point of the river now, and it's where the wind really starts to hit with lack of shelter.
Right, so the question is, those big lads in the middle of the crew, Wallace on the left of your picture, how much did that burst coming under Hammersmith Bridge extend from them? How much have they got left? And my guess is it will have taken a bit out of them. And here, Angus, in this headwind conditions is where it'll tell.
Yeah, definitely. And also, when you've got that much more lactic acid in your legs, it makes dealing with this really, really choppy stuff that little bit more difficult. And as you can see, Gromit is the crew that's cutting through those waves a little bit more nicely. They're just keeping that rhythm, tapping it along a bit, and just not really caring about the rough water.
I think Wallace is actually in more danger here from the waves than Gromit is, because if you look at Gromit on the right-hand side, all of their blades still cleanly exiting the water, still able to keep the boat nice and level set, but Wallace on the left here, they're just catching waves in and out, and I don't know whether here there's a decision for Rahul Marchand to make about where they need to be on the river.
What about the new sponsors watching this? Chanel, great to have them on board. A massive crab on bow sides, Taskful Muller, William O'Connell, Will Randall and Christian Rees, the bowman of the crew. Wallace just not happy in those conditions. I was just going to say the new sponsors Chanel, and of course it's going to be the Chanel J12 boat race. They are going to be loving this, aren't they? What cutthroat competition.
This is excellent stuff here, and again I still think that Wallace will have belief here, because that move that Gromit have made around the outside I think has been partially due to the water conditions, I think partially due to their sort of cool calm nature, but they've kept overlap. It really hasn't been extending by the amount that you'd expect if it was the sort of waning energy of Wallace.
Wallace is going to have probably another quarter of a length advantage over the next minute or so, and then it's going to be a bit of a drag race until it's Gromit's advantage. So I think I think we're in for a sprint finish here.
So let's give a name check to Gromit, the leading crew on the left of your picture, on the right of your picture. Cox, Tara Slade, who went for the bump in the 2023 boat race, which didn't quite come off. She's a massive Harry Potter fan. Nick Rusher we've spoken about, as is Saxon Stacey. Six-man Tom Sharrock, boat race blue from 22 and 23. ISIS last year. Luke Robinson, the engineer from Jesus College. Felix Rawlinson, the classy GB under 23 athlete, world champion in that category as well. Yannick Limmer from Germany, he learnt to row at Oxford. Great that there's so many development athletes here. Isaac Throsby, the St Paul schoolboy, was in the final in 2023 at Henley. The Princess Elizabeth rowed with that bulk, who is Art Coldigan, and bow Felix Crabtree. Well, we've been through the Crabtree Reach. We should have mentioned Felix, who is from your alma mater, Camilla.
Yeah, Stratford-upon-Avon Boat Club, attended Shakespeare's school, in fact, King Edward VI School in Stratford-upon-Avon, so great to see Felix Crabtree in the bow seat there, and we were going to say aptly named. I know that Crabtree is the sort of alumni of Oxford and Cambridge, but I think historically has been more Cambridge associated. But look at this, they are starting to extend out now, and that confidence that they'll be gaining by being that far out in front, they'll be calling for that snap now. Tara Slade will be looking for that clear water.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't know what you guys think, but basically they don't need to do anything. You know, okay, you know, the rhythm is just great. It has been great from the first stroke. They are moving on it. The last thing they need to do, in my opinion, is throw in a big something and lose that flow, the fluidity. And then I think, you know, the other crew, Wallace on the left of your picture's got a chance.
I think the Gromit crew has actually put in a bit of a squeeze there, but we haven't noticed it because it's been within the rhythm. That's been a defining feature for that crew all throughout the changing conditions throughout the course. That's exactly what you need for the boat race.
Well, if this is spotted by Rahul Marchand here, this could be a good opportunity, because what Tara Slade's done is she's moved in to try and get towards that centre arch of Barnes Bridge, but is actually starting to cross blades now with the Wallace crew. So if Marchand calls for it here, they could start to bump up and start to interfere with the leading crew.
The thing I would like to see, and I'm not sure he's got the beans for it because he's been working so hard, is Nick Cole, the Italian stroke man. He's got that fantastic finish on him. Taskful Muller in the 7th seat, James Doran behind him will know what Nick Cole is capable of, and we may see some fireworks as we come under Barnes Bridge. But obviously at the end of a 2k race, it's different from the brutal, you know, boat race championship course in these headwind conditions.
Yeah, almost 20 minutes of racing, or could in fact be 20 minutes of racing in this kind of headwind. It is a very different kettle of fish here, and just another little sink there on the bow side blades for the Wallace crew. They just went under slightly, catching the water, and that would have taken off any run that they had coming in towards this corner. And I think that was maybe caused by the steering, Angus. You know, when you put that rudder on in the Cox's seats, it can cause that little bit of an upset.
Yeah, and also the Grommet crew have moved across in front of the Wallace crew at the moment, and they're giving them what's called dirty water, so really turbulent water. And when you put your blade in, it just feels funny, so you can't take a proper stroke, and I think that's what we're seeing right now, just disturbing that Wallace crew.
Yeah, they are sort of rocking and rolling all over the place at the moment. Wallace, they're going to need to bring it back. And actually, I think the rate's coming up here from Nick Cole in the stroke seat. You called it, Crossy. He's got that extra little bit of Italian fire.
Yeah, he's going to really sprint for the back end. No matter, he's just going to completely empty the tank. I mean, it's pretty running on fumes at the moment, but, you know, boy, is he going to empty it. I do think, you know, credit to the Oxford squad. A lot of these athletes are development athletes. You mentioned Paolo Cicuta, the British Italian. You know, he's a development squad. He learned to row at university, and then someone like Will Randall, again, he only started rowing in October 2023. He's in the 3-seat of the crew we're looking at now, writing a DPhil in English, a project entitled The Medium of Writing in the Age of AI, which is going to be fascinating to read. But these guys, they're all development, and you know, they are rowing really well. They're serving this up with a great boat race. Are they moving back a little bit?
I'm not sure. It looks like Grommet have held the advantage that they got. What we can see really nicely here is Mark Vangenhall's stamp of a technical model upon these boats. You're saying that all these Dev athletes coming up, they're rowing the same as the Olympians. Like that's really nice. At the back end, at the finish, they seem to have like that slight pause, just letting the boat run on nicely, and they're rowing very nicely together, both crews, and they've got a great squad this year, I think.
Well, you can just see the stroke ratings there being what we thought was the case from looking at them on the screen, but much higher in the Wallace crew, up to 33 strokes a minute and keeping it nice and punchy compared to 31 strokes a minute from Nick Rusher in that Grommet crew, who are just holding. It's that confidence to be able to stick to your own race and rhythm and just hold them there.
I think if anything, Wallace have loosened off a bit towards the end of this race. I mean, they look to be a little more fluid, a little more flowy coming into the back end. Maybe they've just got a bit more together in this part.
And look, I do think, personally, I think they had the worst of the conditions on their station, and I don't know why that is. You know, I'm not a Cox, I've not been out there, Cox on the water, but it did look like they got caught a lot more by the washing machine of the tideway than the crew here from on the Middlesex station, Grommet, who looked great here coming into the finish.
Yeah, so we're coming up to the finish, and it's no magical bow win for the bowman Christian Rees, but it is fantastic for the Grommet crew. Tara Slade, Cox and Nick Rusher doing the business. Look at that smash in the water. You don't generally see that in Trial H races, but I think that was someone like Tom Sharrock or Luke Robinson maybe who was doing that, and you can see what it meant to them, Angus.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was an absolute textbook Trial H race. That's what you want. There's no real interference between the two crews. You can see that both crews have bought into this technical model. It's a close race, and I think Mark Vangenhall's actually going to have a very nice but difficult problem in selecting his crew now.
You think about all the elements that a good boat race to watch as a spectator, but also, I guess, you know, some of the great races we've had in years gone by contain, and that is interesting weather, which we've had, good close racing, which we've had, some element of a potential clash or drama.
This is beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, look at this. How lovely. That, as you say, not often you see that in Trial Eights.
No. The eights coming together, and I love that shot. You know, that is what is great about the Oxford squad. Obviously, the camaraderie. Didn't see Cambridge do that. Doesn't mean to say they don't have the camaraderie, but it's fantastic about our sport of rowing. It's that extra dimension. And I tell you what, these lads rowed so well, and this was without their best rower, Tom McIntosh, who's got to come back from New Zealand.
Well, let's have a recap of that phenomenal race that we just saw between Wallace and Gromit, the Oxford University men's trial eights, and it was a great start for both crews. And at this point, we from the commentary team thought that Wallace, well, they were dynamite going off the start, 38 strokes a minute. You can just see there that I don't know, Angus, would you have counted? You were talking about you only have two or three opportunities to put big bursts in. That huge start, I think, for me, must have been one of those chances that they've taken.
Yeah. Well, I think it looked that looked like it did take a lot of energy. They went off like a bat out of hell, but I think it's when you settle down into a rhythm, and then that's when you have your 2 or 3 big pushes. But they'll, as you do more training throughout the season, they still got 4 months left to the race for both crews. There's still time to develop physiology.
Tactics, did Wallace need to throw in that big push at Hammersmith Bridge? It was really impressive, but given they had the Surrey bend, could they have waited till they were through the rough at Chiswick or something like that? What do you reckon?
No, I think they probably made the right call then. I think probably where they lost the race was actually why we're coming up to here. When they went into I don't think they dealt with the rough water quite as well. I think we rewind a bit to your original question. That bit coming up to Hammersmith Bridge where they put in that big push, they needed to do that to stay in contact because the Gromit crew was moving ahead then.
Yeah, I just love the rhythm that we had from Russia and Stacey in the stern of the crew on the right, and I did from the off, and I kind of thought, that's the rhythm that wins you the boat race.
I think that's particularly impressive as well, considering that the Oxford whole setup at Wallingford has been flooded for most of this season. So they've had limited opportunities to get on the water. They got used to the British rowing headquarters at Caversham, and they've come down here for a couple of weekends. But to produce rowing of that quality across the 2 boats, I think is very impressive indeed.
Brilliant shot of the course, the river course, as they come round Chiswick Steps and through to the bend on Barnes Bridge from our drone. Another great shot head on as we come through to the race.
Well, just picking up on your point, Angus, that was something we talked about kind of off air, was that Oxford do tend to get hit by the flooding, and which has been so prevalent in the UK for the last few years. That Wallingford stretch that the OUBC Boathouse is on just seems to get hit really badly, and so any opportunities they get on any stretch of water are golden. Ely doesn't flood very much, and it's never really unrowable, whereas for Oxford, they've got to make absolute use out of everything that they get. But what a wonderful finish there for that crew, and brilliant stuff from the Gromit combination. And I think, again, just so many options here for Mark Fang and Hall. Those 2 stern pairs that we talked about. We even had Saxon Stacey, who was in the 7th seat there. He was stroking one of the Trial 8 crews last year. So, again, I think there's even more to look at as we come into the 2025 boat race.